All right, everybody, we're ready to jump into our next session. I want to bring up the amazing Dan Marshall, and we're going to have a great session talking about broadcast in the cloud. Let's have a hand for Dan. Come on, everybody. That's what I like.
Stay seated. Stay seated. Thank you very much. Last year I was here, and we were doing something similar. Do we have any New Yorkers in the crowd today? Yeah, New Yorkers. I remember last year I was here, and New York Jets and New York Giants, 7 games in, were posting winning seasons, both teams. One was 5-2, one was 6-1. And the place was just buzzing a year ago. Now this year. Okay. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce a couple of folks here. Adam Chugg, Enterprise Account Manager at AWS. Walid Hamri, AVP Media Systems Engineering. We're here today to talk about some milestones, milestone that hit the broadcast industry. I'm up here just to do a quick introduction. Don't lose that. The video will start sooner than we wanted it to. So Sinclair has been involved in a really great transformation that I think most of the broadcast industry has been watching really closely over the past couple of years. And it is the migration of moving some of their broadcast operations, cloud operations from ground to cloud. And this is something, as I mentioned, has been very closely watched by the industry. I think they started this journey, Walid, about 2 years ago when you made that decision. And then you've assembled a great cast of partners, some of your great and outstanding technologies to get to this point. And as we read in the description of this, they were able to launch their first station out of Raleigh, and I think Birmingham got launched as well, that was moving full play out into the cloud, including things like master control, which has always been quite challenging for this industry. So it's a huge milestone for not just Sinclair, but for the industry in general. So it's a great place that we've gotten to today. And with that, Walid's going to take some time to talk about how they got here, but a little bit about the journey. And given that Adam was such coming from AWS was such an important and integral part of the partnership to get them there, we thought it'd be great to have this technology discussion, talk about some of the benefits, where they are today and where they're going to be headed here over the next couple of years. So with that, we're going to kick this off to Walid.
Thank you, guys. The reason we're here is we can talk about the architecture, we can talk about the details, but I think the most important part is the journey that we've been through from day one all the way to the launch, and more important, all the lessons that we learned. Like we started on day one trying to design something, and obviously when we launched like a few weeks back, it was nothing like what we started. So there was a learning process, and it was not only a master control to the cloud. There was actually like the whole transformation, the cloud media transformation. So it's almost like we can start by showing you actually a quick video, but we can start with the beginning, showing it what the video could look like, and then we can go into the architecture piece. Or we can do the opposite. We can start actually with a slide, and then we can go through the video at the end. Like it doesn't, either way. Looks like we're starting with the video. So this is like what's coming out from the kitchen. So that's a master control on the cloud. It looks like a master control. It feels like a master control. It is a master control in the cloud. What we have here is our Raleigh station recording that we did yesterday morning when we're taking on live news that being produced by Sinclair, not in Raleigh, in another location actually, taking it to the cloud and taking it on air for one of our stations. On the top left side, you can see exactly the output actually of the master control, what's going to go on air. And on the lower left side, you see the input coming in. So the benefit here is like you have a single glass where you can see your input coming in, your output going out, and you have your full playlist that could be customized. The benefit that we have here is we tailored actually the look and feel and the customization based on the station needs. Because on this process, one thing that we're accounted for is also the habit of the people. They used to operate a certain way, and we're trying actually to move from like a local master control to a cloud one, but keeping the same look and feel that they can have and they've been doing for years. So you can, like everyone that's familiar with master control, he can recognize the playlist, he can recognize like all the classic element rolling the break, coming out from the break, going on live events, could be actually live sports, could be live news. That's actually what this is an example that we have for Rally in this case. So if we, I can actually take questions on the video later on. What we can do next is probably get out a video and show you how we come up to these results. I know it's kind of like we're starting with the dessert, which is the sweet piece looking at the video, but let's look at why we've done it. And what I was talking about, it's not only a transition from master control to the cloud, it's a truly media cloud transformation. And even within Sinclair, we're making a clear difference between what we call a transition that could be associated to a classic lift and shift and transforming the way we're creating video and delivering videos. The reason why we started this journey, like I have here a couple of bullet points, and I can show you actually what was behind the hood for every single one, because that sounds like how we started and the results. There is always something that we had to fix, we have to adjust to come up with this result. So on the technology, so like where we have the choice of the station, for example, that's something that might simple, but we, as part of our strategy, we choose station based on certain criteria. Like, for example, here we talk about new technology, like aging factor, the aging equipment that they have on site. It's something that you have to take into consideration. The complexity of the station. Obviously, we're not going to start with the most complex use case to take to the cloud. We start actually with normal use case that we have across our station. We focus on step one. This is just the beginning. So we have the first station up where the first station, in order to get it up, we have to put all the ground level. When I say ground, I'm talking about security. I'm talking about infrastructure. And we have like large number of teams working on this project. We have security making sure that every time we have our infrastructure up and running, it's compliant with number of rules and security teams. And actually, we're working with AWS help on that front as well. We had new opportunities or new limitation that we learned from the business side. We know that today, spinning up a new channel on any station today takes a lot of time, just because we're all coming out from COVID years where lead time was impacted, where we've all been waiting from servers coming from outside the country, getting stuck somewhere, and all this were impacting our lead time for every single project we're doing. So having actually the reactivity that we can have facing a business need was dramatically increasing. Like if you have a channel, and that's something that we've done for other use cases, if the business guys come in would say, I have a new use case, I need this channel spinning up, we're talking about weeks from end to end until we launch it instead of like a month before. So that was actually one of the desire behind this. Like everything that we're building needs to be flexible enough that we can spin up, spin down, that we can adjust. And actually even we're talking about new revenue stream. We're talking about if we decide to have new fast channels, if we decide to add some Scotty markers because for advertiser reason, we need actually to trigger any targeted ad insertion. We were looking at spinning up actually like new channels for themes, for anything. That's actually having it in the cloud and having it available for everything. That's actually something that we will try to achieve. We're on day one. So if someone can come up today and ask actually for new use cases, that's actually happening. So we're looking at, as we deploy in channels, we're looking at adding new use cases, adding actually new requirements, and building on top of what we had as a baseline from when we started, then you would say like about a year and a half or 2 years ago. So this, if we shift now to the architecture piece, because there is few items that come up every time we talk about the cloud. How was the redundancy? How's the network going to work? What's the latency? So all those we can actually address them, and then we can obviously take questions if they're going on this way. So one of the first requirements that we started was we need a redundant system. We worked with AWS and our system today. The main benefit is having a redundant on East and West regions. And within every region, we have actually redundancy within the data centers or availability zones. That was one of the requirements, just to have actually a centralized system. You can see here actually on the screen, you have the US East 1, and you have actually the US West 2, and we have a centralized piece that I can probably explain it better on the next slide. That's called the cloud media pipeline. Without having a centralized media pipeline, this project will probably not take off. So there's like different teams working on that, and they've been doing like tremendous job getting a centralized content from all our stations to a single place, getting it QC'd, getting it timed, getting it ready to air. That makes the playout job a lot easier because all the complexity has been taken off already by having a centralized piece. I always take an example like Big Bang Theory, The Simpsons. Like we can receive the same episode 60 times for 60 different stations. Today, it's been QC'd once. It's been received once. It's been actually delivered to the multiple playout instances, but it's all cloud to cloud delivery. Let's go back to what I was saying between the transition and the transformation. Instead of taking the file, delivering it to 60 station, have 60 different people touching it, we're doing cloud to cloud delivery. It comes, it never touches the floor in a way. It goes from the distributor to our cloud media management to our playout and go back directly down for the air chain. We don't upload, download. And that's actually part of, if I just have to differentiate between transition transformation, that example is probably the best one. So in terms of architecture overall, I was talking about the cloud media pipeline. Like any playout, we can forget about the boxes. Just we have a centralized playout that can play any channel. In order to any playout to work or automation, we need a schedule, we need the media, we need a live feed, and you have the graphics or the decoration in general. So for the traffic, we start with that piece, having it already on the cloud. So like I said before, everything's coming from the traffic as a log, as a schedule, doesn't touch the floor, going cloud to cloud. The cloud media pipeline, giving us the file that we're going to play, the same logic, doesn't touch the floor, going cloud to cloud. That's all those pieces of the transformation itself. When we touch about the live feed, that's actually where we have multiple approaches. Station 1 that needs to air like a Fox network or a news. Some of the content is only available. Some of the feed are only available at the station. So we had to have content at the station in order to carry up those feeds. That's why here we have the centralized feeds and the local feeds. The centralized feed, I think I mentioned before, The Simpsons or Big Bang Theory, it doesn't matter. I was saying that we received it once and we can air it like 60 times or even more if needed. The same logic, like the news that I was showing that Sinclair is producing that we call National Desk, it's being produced once, it's being carried on or uploaded to the cloud once and made available for every single channel. So the same logic, I don't need to carry the signal 60 times. I don't need to have 60 IRDs and 16 encoders across the board. I'm only have it once to take it to the cloud, and from there, it needs to be made available for every single station. So I'm trying to be extremely careful when I mention those optimization because I think that the heart of the project is transforming and transitioning. So all the details that I'm mentioning here, they were built in as part of the solution. It's not an optimization that we come up with. That's at the heart of the solution actually to start with. And then on the playout side, that's where it becomes classic distribution. As soon as the channel is available on the cloud, we take it down to the station, and then from there it goes to the air chain as it does today. One thing that I think we can show, I had, that's actually interesting one. The way I put the slide here, I took on purpose slides that we had at the beginning of the project to tell you what to expect. And then I can tell you exactly the tweaking or the customization that we had to do. So the content that's easily accessible and searchable, that's thanks to the cloud media pipeline that we have a centralized place that's been QCing and preparing all the contents. That's like one of the most important pieces of the project itself. What we can do better, that's actually we have like an improvement to be done, just the way we carry the content, the way we tag it, the way we actually time it. So when we started, for example, the easily searchable, we find out that multiple stations, like for example, within Sinclair, they tend to upload the same content because they are not aware of the next station actually already did it. So that's something that we had to work on actually on the process it's good that you have a centralized place, but if everyone is uploading the same content, it's not centralized anymore. Like it's centralized, but everyone is putting his little piece on it. So that's the optimization that has to come in from the operational side in order actually to make this project successful. The other one was the speed and flexibility of the operation. And that's something that we learned for the first station. There is a lot of moving pieces. And we had to work on order what to deploy first in order to be successful. Today, we have a running book. We know exactly what to do step by step when we have to go channel on air. The first one, yes, it didn't take us 2 weeks to get the first channel on air. It took us more than that. But as we ramp up the channels, we know exactly what needs to happen, from upgrading the bandwidth to the station, from having those local encoders that I was talking about before, to have actually all the specific missing media for one channels. Local advertisers or local spots, they're not the same actually if you go to station 1, station 2, station 3. So that's something that we had actually to take into consideration in order to pick up the pace and move. The centralized playout, that's also, centralized playout is good. Having it multi-tenants when actually station 1 cannot impact station 2, that's actually even more important of having it centralized. So that's something that we also worked on to make sure that even if we have a centralized playout, it's a multi-tenant instances where station 1 cannot impact station 2. That being said, I think we're going to talk about it later. You can see that we have multiple ways for redundancy. There, stations C can take over station A in case of catastrophic weather or something happening to the station. They reduce the physical equipment on the footprint. When we started actually the exercise, you will think that, oh, I'm going to move everything to the cloud. I will have nothing on the station. That's not true. You still need to have this local content that needs to get uploaded. You still need to get the content back to the station in order to get it to air. So yes, we're moving from multiple racks to maybe one, but that's something that we had to adjust because there is content that needs to go on air and content actually that needs to be downloaded. And also on the infrastructure, since we're talking about upgrading the network, there's also like requirement on the bandwidth. Like now that we have the feed coming up and coming down, there's also requirement on going back from the security, want back to every single spot, even at local station, is complying with the company policies. And the last one is all the data points that we're collecting when actually we're going on air. Just the fact now that the transition of the signal is moving from multiple pieces, we developed actually a map where we can have multiple data points where we can monitor or troubleshoot every single one. So that's actually was pretty much my last slide. If you just have to remember one thing, because usually I talk too much, it just transitioning from one workflow to another was not the right way, at least for our use case, to do it. We were going through transforming the way actually we're creating videos in order to achieve all actually the goals that we built on day one.
So, Walid, I really like how you focused on the transition versus transformation, right? As we all know, transformation is hard, right? You know, that's not like the easy thing to do. And as others who are looking at kind of leaning in and making that transformation, what would you say is something that was a really important lesson learned or a piece of nugget of information that you guys kind of discovered as you went through and started to do this transformation?
I think probably one interesting point was when it comes to redundancy. When we start this process, it's really hard to predict the failures that you're going to have. So you still need to pick how many AWS regions I'm going to use, how many availability zone I'm going to use. Am I going to have the same level of redundancy across all the stations, across all the channels? I think that's something that needs to be defined ahead of time, and with the flexibility that can be adjusted. Like we started with designing different architecture schema between the East and West, and then we moved into fully redundant from A to Z. So we have fully redundant system running independent from each other that can actually run in parallel. And I think the redundancy was an important piece. one thing for the resilience, just to finish on that, was we worked actually with the partners, with Amagi here specifically, and actually AWS, to have a disaster recovery box. The disaster recovery, when we start talking about disaster recovery, one of the requests was to not have a full-blown automation and playout as disaster recovery, because it defeats the purpose of the cloud. So what we have today is a local box sitting at every single station, ready to air, automatically synchronized with the cloud, that's available just in case stations go dark. Our main path goes down, our backup path to the internet goes down, the station is not going down. It's going to play what's in the server. What's in the server? Whenever actually before there's a failure, the server is automatically syncing up with the cloud like a hybrid architecture, and downloading all the assets that need to be played, and having actually the IRDs with the live sources available for that. This box and that choices that we made, the box can air for like 24 to 48 hours if the station go dark. So if the station go dark, what I was saying before, all our content is in the cloud. So this box doesn't have I forgot the number, but probably like 500,000 assets that we have. That's not what we have on the box. What we have is what's going to air for the next 24 to 48 hours. Because that, again, that's discussion we had with our network team, support team, etc., that confirm that they're fairly confident with a high number of fives that we can come up with a solution to get the network back within 24 to 48 hours. So all these were information that were like data driven. Like we know we can solve the issue within, here as an example, 24 to 48 hours. We don't need to design a box that's going to last for 2 months, because that's going to become a full-blown actually master control and play out.
That's really great to hear, because, Sinclair has a very unique mission, right? In that you guys are doing broadcast TV, if there's a weather event, if there's a hurricane, right? Like we all turn on our TVs to look and see what's going on. So how has that really been a focus of kind of your decision and your design making process, right? To really make sure that, the operators and everybody is able to do that redundancy. Has that been a challenge? Has that been, something that was at the forethought of your idea?
So we knew starting the project that just the fact that we have a centralized playout, there is a learning curve just to move from a software that they have on site to actually something running on the cloud. And that's learning curve. We get data from it. Like we haven't done it before, but we still collected data points from people that move from system 1 to system 2. Just even if it's not on the cloud, at least you have a feedback how much people will need to learn, how many hours of training we need, and how much people actually, like how many people need to train between the day shift, the night shift, etc. So all those information, we took it into consideration to design the curriculum and say, I'm going to deploy this. That's good. It can be the best system of the world. If you haven't drove a Tesla before, it takes a time to adjust to it. So, and that's how it was built in on the design actually of the car itself, or the playout in this way, in this case.
So I know another thing was, like we talked about, right? The Simpsons, being able to realize that extra benefit of not having to produce the same 60 shows over and over again. There's a lot of, I think, total cost that can kind of be realized. You also kind of showed where you were able to hand off signals to also your digital properties. So how has that been kind of viewed and looked at within Sinclair? Are you guys starting to realize and see some of those benefits of being able to kind of centralize some of this technology and being able to distribute the video content in an effective way?
Yeah, actually, to be fair to the digital team, their infrastructure to support our web delivery was already on the cloud. So they were the first ones supportive to have a cloud-to-cloud delivery and not relying on anything actually on-prem. The same logic, if we just want to transition, you're going to take your signal that we see here on top right, you're going to take it to the station, and then you're going to use what you have today, which is send it back to the digital side that's sitting on AWS as well. So what we said in the first discussion we have with them is like, hey, we can have like a media connect, like a cloud-to-cloud delivery. We don't need to come down to the station and go up. So that's going to save us from, even the long run, refreshing those equipments and supporting them, etc. So for this specific use case, actually, when we talk about digital guys, they were the first ones supporting this effort. What we also improved is, because I was talking about the latency. So some of the discussion we had about the latency, that's actually forced us to design like a trigger-based system instead of having manually people taking X. Someone click, just roll the brake. So what we design on this specific case, that's what we're doing for our digital case as well. All our signals will have SCADA35 embedded. So every time someone see the trigger, it will automatically frame-based transition from segment to brake, or actually go to the website and say, oh, I received the newscast start signal. That means I can put this signal coming on the website. Oh, now I receive actually an ad break start for 90 seconds. I can go and prefetch my ads, replace them for the next 90 seconds. Then I have the segment 2, and at the end I have a trigger that says newscast end, which means you're not allowed to air The Simpsons, for example, on our website, as an example. So all those where we moved actually from a trigger-based event, we moved from actually manual-driven to trigger-based. And that's actually helped us even on the latency discussion. If you think about someone counting me down from the newsroom to tell me, hey, go on break, now we say, don't count me down. Just actually, if you insert whenever you think the break is going, the SCADA35 in this case, there is a trigger coming in, I will automatically detect the trigger and move to the break. So even this like human interaction for like half seconds, for 1 second, for me to click and take next is gone. So yes, we have more latency, like the whole system will have 2 seconds more latency, for example, but all the frame and accuracy become like frame accurate. So the transitions like the transition are perfect. I mean, it's not like better or not better, just like they're frame accurate. Yes, they're like 2 seconds late, but everything actually is in sync with each other. And that's something that we have to build in, just actually to get all those use cases coming in. We're talking about sport, we're talking about news and other use cases.
So that's great. Thanks for that explanation. I know that we're running out of time, but I did want to ask you one question. When you looked at the criteria that you set forth when you started out this journey, are you satisfied with where you're ending up? I know it's a small sample size because you have two stations which you've launched, but how are you feeling about this? And where do you go from here? What's next?
If you say satisfied, the answer is no. That's step 1. I'm not going to lie. Like that's the step 1 of the transformation. I'll be satisfied I'll be more satisfied as we go forward. This is literally step 1. We have so many use cases that we can develop, so many business opportunities that we can actually open. This is just the start. And we're talking about 2 stations out of probably like hundreds that we have to do. This is just the start.
But you have to see the light, because when you were going through earlier, you were talking about all the elimination of equipment and getting out of some of these redundant tasks. So there's got to be a TCO that you guys are already recognizing that you guys are saying, hey, we hit it here. This is good for us.
You're actually correct. So there's 2 things. Do I see the light at the end of the tunnel? Absolutely, yes. I know the light is coming closer as we go. I'll be satisfied when actually I'm out of the tunnel and I say I can deliver every single use case within weeks when they come up. But you're absolutely correct. Actually, we've been pretty successful delivering this project for the first. And honestly, we're still in track on our schedule that we put together like 2 years ago. That tells you like a lot of projects get delayed for like weeks and 6 months, etc. So until now, we're still on track to deliver what we promised. So
pressure's still on.
Yeah, but we're not. Yeah, I mean, we're not slowing down. But the tunnel is still there. We're not getting any speeding ticket. Obviously, we're still actually cruising on the tunnel.
That's great to hear. Well, but it is, I think we would all admit, everybody in this industry who's been watching this has been transformative. And the fact that you've got here, all the technology that we're talking about today, which was so ground-based, now being done in the cloud. I mean, we're talking about this like nothing's changed, except the fact that it's gotten more efficient, better cost, more flexible. And that's a testament to Sinclair, what you've been able to design with the partnerships that you've chosen. And I think it's a big deal.
Yeah. And just to finish on this, like when I say it's step 1, just because we're talking about here master playout on stations. The next step is production on the cloud, is the editing, archiving. There is actually much more we're currently working on that even if we haven't deployed it yet, but I'm pretty sure like next year we're going to show up. You're going to have another face from Sinclair. They're going to tell you actually that's a big milestone for another step. I will not spoil. I will not tell you who that be.
We love your face, though. So thank you. Everybody, appreciate the time that you spent with us for this half hour. Thank you very much for being here, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks.
Thank you all.